I played the new update for Marvel Rivals Season 1.5 that came out a few days ago, and I want to talk about it. First, let's briefly talk about the new heroes that came out with the update: Human Torch and the Thing. So let's start with Human Torch. Human Torch is a very interesting hero because out of all the flying DPS, he is by far the most niche, in my opinion. Because unlike Iron Man, who is a burst DPS through and through, or Storm, who is a semi buffer but also hits really hard, he is an area denial flying DPS. He is basically the Penny of the duelist category, which is kind of weird, but it also kind of works. So, his primary fire is the shotgun fire. It's very hard to play with because, as a shotgun primary fire, it spreads out, and you would want to ideally use it in mid to close range. And since he's a flying DPS, he doesn't really have the necessary tools to tank that. But if you are smart with it, you can flank the enemies and get in behind them and just two-shot the squishy heroes in the backline. But that's probably one of the least exciting things about his kit because his alt fire is probably the bread and butter of his entire kit. Because his alt fire is a fireball that he throws down and it stays on the ground and it deals damage over time. And you can throw multiple of these down, and to make it even better, if you throw multiple of these down and then presses E, it will ignite all of the fireballs on the ground and connect them all to each other as long as they're in a certain distance. And when they do connect to each other, their effects become stronger, and anybody who is inside this formation that you've created will also receive dot. And this formation that he creates can be really large. But he also has a dive mechanic, which is probably like one of the more questionable things about his kit. Because yes, it is really cool, and I do like the idea, especially when I first saw it in the trailer. But at the same time, you don't really get to use it all that much. You only get to use it as a finisher, but also it's very inflexible, especially for a first-time user like myself, because the dive mechanic only works at like certain range. You can't use it when you're like really near the ground, which is kind of sad. It would have made it a lot more useful then, because then it would give you more incentive to be all up in the ground, kind of like Storm with her buff. But honestly, the most tempting part of Human Torch's kit, and the part that everyone goes crazy for, is his ult, in which he turns his alt fire into this fire tornado. So instead of a fireball, he throws fire tornadoes, and it has no cooldown, and you can just spam it for the duration of the ultimate. And what makes this a crazier ultimate is the team up with Storm, in which Storm can also unleash her ult in Johnny's ult, and her tornado, Storm's tornado, can become a fire tornado, like a giant fire tornado. And this fire tornado, combined with Johnny's own fire tornado, can wipe out an enemy team easily, especially if you time it right. And even though it's only been a few days, I've been seeing this team up meta of sorts for a while now, and it's been very interesting to see because I'm pretty sure it's just gonna keep ramping up from here. We had triple support last time, and now we have the flying meta with Storm and Human Torch, and if you add Iron Man in there, it's gonna be crazy. But yeah, that's the Human Torch. Now let's go to the Thing. The Thing, in comparison to Human Torch, is a lot more simple, both in terms of his kit and also his primary role as a tank. His primary role as a tank is very, very, very similar to Hulk, in which he's kind of this brawler slash dive tank, because he has his charge ability, in which he just charges forward and just knocking everybody away, and then at the end of the charge, he slams down and stuns enemies nearby. And this is a very powerful tool for getting in a fight, but also trying to get out of a fight. because he also has another tool in which he uses an ally to jump towards them and give both you and that ally you jump to a damage reduction, which is really useful because you can technically use it to get away for situations, but if you're smart and there's also another dive tank in your team like a Venom or a Captain America, you can jump towards the Captain America when they dive the enemy team, and both you and the Captain America could just tag team their backline. And that's a powerful way to use him. And I'm not even getting into his alt fire, which is probably his most busted tool in his kit. Well, aside from the ult. But yeah, his alt fire is basically this haymaker that he just charges up. And when you hit an enemy with this, it deals a lot of damage, it has a large area of effect, and this ability has no cooldown. So you can just spam this, and if you're like dealing with squishy heroes that are like below half health, this Haymaker punch makes it really easy to shut them down almost immediately. And of course, the ult is just like a 4-second stun or something like that. That if you just combine it with your Haymaker, you just basically delete the backline. And because of this, a lot of people are using him more in the matches that I play with, at least. I see the thing a lot more than I see Human Torch, which is just goes to show simple kits aren't bad. And that wraps up the thing. Honestly, these new heroes that Marvel Rivals have been releasing so far, they've been an absolute treat. They're a fantastic addition to the Marvel Rivals roster. But we didn't just get new heroes this update. We also got a new map in the form of Central Park. And compared to Midtown, I like Central Park a lot more. Not only for lore implications and also just aesthetics, but also some of the layouts there. Because lore-wise, like when you're an attacker, you start at Squirrel Girl's treehouse, which is like so cool. I didn't even think they'd do that. I thought they're just gonna do another like Baxter building situation, but this is really cool. And then if you're a defender, you basically start out near Dracula's place, and if you get pushed back, you get to see Dracula in all his might and glory, which is just so cool. And then there's also Ratatoskr, which is just a big giant squirrel god. Really cool. But like, again, the thing that I really like most about Central Park is definitely the layout and how complex it is. Well, in hindsight, it's not really that much more complex than some of these other maps, but I like how convoluted it is almost in these maps to kind of maneuver, especially in the later half. In the first half, everything is a lot more streamlined and easygoing. You kind of know where to go, but in the later half, if you're like trying to find other routes, you can easily just not go the way that you want to go, but also you won't get like lost, but you would just be like, where the hell am I going? Oh, that's where I'm going. And that's kind of really cool. And also these spots that you go into are so tight. They're even tighter than some of these other maps like in Wakanda and or like Yixgard. And I really love how they kind of force you into this environment, especially with like the flyer heroes. Their stocks are like going up, so having like people be forced into these super tight corridors and fighting each other, it's a really nice experience to have once in a while, instead of just fighting out in like a semi-open or just really open area. But yeah, the map quality this season have been great, and I do hope they keep improving on that. But another thing that I would like to mention is that I hope they bring in new game modes, like permanent game modes for the future, that can cycle between domination and payload, because the mini game modes like the Jeff Splatoon and the Rocket League or even Doom Match, they're like cool, they're like great, but having more permanent gameplay modes will really one up the replayability of the game, which is already replayable, but if they somehow add more new game modes in like season 2 that are permanent, that can get cycled through quick match and competitive, that would be really, really hype. But yeah, hopefully the devs continue to listen to their community. Hopefully NetEase continues to deliver good quality updates, because they have been doing just that. They've been delivering, and they've been listening, and they've been adjusting properly. Like balance changes, all that. I think they've been pretty okay so far. And also the quality of the game has just kept increasing with each update that they had, which is just amazing to see. And I mean, like, I thought this game was just gonna be some dumb fun for me for like the first 2 weeks, but turns out I stuck with it for a lot longer, and I'm glad I did. And I really do hope that it makes me want to stick longer, because this game has incredible potential, and I really hope it does live up to that hype. And I'm looking forward to what they have in store for season 2. But I guess in the meantime, I'll play with the new heroes and try out other heroes that I've yet to try out. And maybe I'll make a video about trying out those heroes and my experience with them. But yeah, this is my first video on YouTube, and I kind of wanted to talk about Marvel Rivals because it's the thing that I've been obsessed with for a while. So if you've made it this far, then hopefully you enjoy my content for what it is, and I'll be making more content soon. So if you're interested in that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.